Oh.
Lies all the time. They can sleep.
Yep.
I'm gonna sit back down. Hey, I wanna tell you all, I'm not. Nobody yet in the building.
That's a
Wow.
deal.
I know, but if they don't do it.
Left.
Is, Alan coming?
They heard
As far as I know,
contract.
Is it stuck in traffic? Like boring?
So I think all.
across the courtyard.
Here's Anthony.
Yeah, kind of usually roll in at the last second, so. It's a real far from me to cross the courtyard.
Oh,
Brandon.
here's a story for you.
Zoom.
Join my, with the new boat, right? Join that load, something else. I had a receipt from less than a year ago. It's sure about new carrier banks, new seals, and everything. And I get to look at them. I'm like, it's not this good.
There's time. When you keep ready.
It's not something you're like, it's amazing. I know, I know.
One. I just turned that over.
I mean, it's like.
Which one of you guys are going to? This believe.
There you go.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, it's crop season, Jeff.
I was like, oh.
I figured out later on or Saturday. Finally, my calendar's completely.
The units when we start switching them, so my wife's on the other side.
Oh, you don't have a concert?
Sure it's not a holiday that you don't
No,
want?
I have to look at the schedule. No, inevitably, they wait too long and I get, it seems like we just. Thursday, and I'm in the same court. They didn't final.
Yeah, so what did he do? And next thing I know, it's like 6 inches out of whack.
I wish it was a concert.
I had to get my brother and.
A lot more fun.
Yeah.
We could push it in. So I gotta
Be
get.
sure to, yeah, make sure he's.
Oh, it's got.
Boy, 22 seconds left for the record.
Precision.
Just right, it is on Zoom. Right.
Oh, yes, okay.
Yes. Wanted to let you know. Let you.
All right, let's go ahead and get started this evening with the City of Centerton Planning Commission, March 19th, 2024 with a roll call.
Brandon Swoboda,
Here.
Tony Davis, Ben Lewis, John Sessoms,
Here.
Jerry Harris,
Here.
Craig Langford,
Here.
Devin Murphy,
Here.
Joey Engel,
Here.
Jeff Safar.
I'm here as well. All right, first thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our meeting of 3/5 of 2024.
John, I motion to approve the minutes from 3/5/24.
Joey, I second.
Motion is second. Is anyone opposed? All right, next on the agenda is the ratification of the admin approvals. There's one home occupation. Looks like a mobile dog grooming out of their house. Are there any questions or comments from any of the commissioners or staff? If not, then I would entertain a motion to approve the ratification of the admin approvals.
John, I motion to approve administrative approvals, ratification of admin approvals.
Joey, I second.
Motion is second. Is anyone opposed? All right, under old business, we have subdivision 2119 Ambia Estates. It does expire on 3/21. The request for 6-month extension at 8660 North Rainbow Farm Road. It is zoned R3D. It's 7.89 acres. And I need a motion to bring this back to the table since we tabled it last time.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to rehear subdivision 2119 Ambia Estates.
Greg, I second.
Motion is second. Is anyone opposed? It's now back on the table. Eric, do you want to cover? I know we had some questions. Do you want to cover any of those questions for us? Anything we need to consider?
I wasn't here for the last meeting, so I can
All right.
go over what was discussed, but I can still do the overview.
Okay.
So Amby Estates was granted preliminary approval by the planning commission back in April 2022. Granted a one-year extension last year on 3/21/2023. The term of the duration of that approval will expire this Thursday on 3/21. They tell us that they're having complications receiving their ADH permit. I've yet to schedule a pre-construction meeting. The reason why staff wanted to bring this back for review is with changes in the codes over time, there was a few updates that were needed. In addition, that there were also comments that were not fully addressed on the after approval initially. So,
What needs to be, what needed or needs to be updated then?
items need to be added to the adjacent street agreement. And then, there were changes in the drainage, and then there were updates in the water and sewer.
So the big thing is with the new energy utilities, their corridors have changed to where they have the water and sewer in the streets. These are outside of it, so they want to take a look at the whole thing again. There's a couple of minor changes I saw was around the pond, but looking at it, I have more concerns about the layout of the roads. And wanting to see a turning diagram for that for our fire truck. Right now, there's a single access coming off the north side. And it does two 90-degree bends to get into it, so it'd be similar to Sun Meadows Loop. Which right now our fire trucks can't make. I don't think it's that sharp. But still would make one of those double 90s to get into the subdivision. Then there's also a fire access lane that I think I installed to get as much as the diagonal rule for their separation for drives. The way it's laid out, it's directly across from the intersection of Rainbow Farms and Brookside. So we want to get this back for a full review, so the fire department can look at it again. And you can look at it again from the streets layout. And that center utilities can look at and have update per their newest codes.
So you have or you haven't?
We would need more information from them for the grant for all the truck stuff. And then they wanted to redo the whole thing for the, I think, for the center utilities.
Okay, so we're not ready for,
Well, we would recommend not having them, not renewing the,
We want I need some notes.
we'd want them to go through the process again to resubmit everything, and not giving it the extension. So they can make the updates to meet the current codes.
So this project would expire and they would have to submit a whole new preliminary application.
okay? Can we help them on that front?
Significantly quicker.
As far, I'm just talking about as for the application, like. I know they're probably held up at health department because of,
Part of it is that they're waiting for another development in order to connect to.
To connect the sewer.
and they might be held up.
It might be, and that's, it's a trickle effect. Yeah.
Approved back in 22, of April 22. It's been 2 years on this.
Has it expired then?
Yeah. 2 days. We had a few days.
I was simply asking if we can help them out on the like
Plus, we
permit
do-
fee. I mean, since we've done it once. I feel like there is some responsibility on the city side on the ADH issue. So,
Do you have when Malcolm sent the letter that ADH was ADH had released that area?
okay, yeah, that would be
No.
good information.
October, November. So, but they are having to wait and connect into another subdivision also.
Is that currently under construction?
I don't know, one of the other things that Malcolm said is part of that sanitary sewer was approved, or the ACE batting cages just north of this were approved with the stipulation that they would tie into the sewer here. And the connection where they can tie into that isn't part of this design. Well, something else I know he wanted to look at.
I'm Chase Allison with Half. We're the engineer of record on this one. And I think what they're saying is accurate with we were approved April 22. We requested the extension in 23. All of that was this development and the Daisy Road duplex development were going through concurrently. And they were evaluated under the same sewer study because they both drained to the lift station in Brookside Estates. And so having to push both of those forward at the same time, and then the whole ADH issue with the capacity came up. And like they were saying, that got resolved in November of last year. So November, December. We've been working to get ADH submittal. So that's where we're at today. We've submitted to ADH. We've got first round of ADH comments earlier this week. I guess it was this week. So that's where we're at. That's why we were asking for the extension, was just to get through ADH submittal and then pre-con.
Have you looked at their comments that they gave you?
Mentioning, we received them.
Are those incorporated in your health department submittal or not?
No, they have not discussed.
To me, it seems like I'll call it a significant infrastructure type design, right? I mean, this is the biggest thing
Yeah.
to change.
Yeah, the Center Utilities want to look at it again. I want to look at it with the fire marshal for the fire access. Yeah. So that the turn in. When they come in. And the way it's now, I'm not sure the fire truck can make that turn to get on the north loop of Cedar or Cater. So if they have to go around that loop to get on that first one, and then would have to go out through the south one, the fire access road. It defeats the purpose of having two roads if one's blocked, like you wouldn't be able to get in and out. So I'm not just sure that they can make that turn from the north side of Cater to the exit. If they don't, they might have to kind of revise that layout a bit.
I think you just tweak the radius, right?
Do you know what that minimum radius that you guys need is?
I don't.
Should be,
He's done.
it should be around 28 feet. So I don't know if that interior,
Yeah, do we have the other plan sheets with this, or is this the only one?
Let me see what else we have.
what's curve 12, what's C12, you can add 10 feet to it.
That would not be it.
I mean, it'd be very easy.
Yeah, I think you just run a truck to.
If you make it straight, putting 15 above, but again, the separation distance for your two access drives, then it would be dropping. So right now it's just barely below that requirement with that access drive. So it's enough where Paul's okay with it. But the access, I'm not sure. So it's something that would need to be looked at, possibly tweaked.
Yeah.
The sanitary sewer looked at, most likely tweaked. And the other part was applied for, they're not putting curb and gutter in. I'm not sure why not. I know like Brookside did. And this one, they're already calling for a storm sewer right along the road. So it's not like they're not already accounting for the drainage off of it. So they want to revise it for that. So hence going through like a submittal full review and comments with those tweaks. And not just extended. But if it's extended, they'll have to do at least the study with the fire truck regardless.
I mean,
This is Brandon. I have a question. It says right there also, there's under preliminary plan staff comments, there's a number of other things that seem to need to be addressed. Is that correct? Those 8 items?
Yes, that's correct.
So it's not just not just the entrance issue for the fire, as well as the curb and gutter issue, but it's also these other issues.
That is correct.
That is correct.
Okay.
My question would be, were these issues not addressed the first time it was approved?
There were comments.
And it was, we had fire trucks 2 years ago, right? Not new.
There was different personnel in the departments reviewing this. Well, about all 3 departments, in 3 different departments.
So that's why I'm trying to look at both sides there, like they've got it approved, I mean.
And the adjacent street agreement, I think that's a critical one that. I know that
How about
there's
we just do
non-conforming
that?
things like
Stuff.
detention ponds.
And Paul did have a comment that he would feel that it would be best if it went through a full review again.
well, there's obviously outstanding comments. There were outstanding comments when it was approved the first time. It sounds like those haven't been addressed. Is there what's the downside to extending it contingent upon the second being?
It's putting different stipulations they submitted back and were approved in 22. So I mean, they already went through 3 submittals before, so I had the contract engineers finish this one, because there's like one more review. The standards then were different, they've been updated, so they're held to those standards and they were updated, so it's kind of looking at how they meet today's. And this would then have them bring it up to the current standards. If you extend it, they're still extended on.
They were approved.
They were
approved
and
in the old.
Put myself in their shoes, yeah, they were approved and paid for it then. I mean,
But it's also
It's been 2 years since they've started.
But a lot of that wasn't there
Some of it was, some of it wasn't.
since November, right?
yeah.
But even then, I mean,
Or then they still didn't.
because it's,
The ADH, it was only a
Their
few
instructions
months,
for planting.
like June to November or something.
Tough one, because I see y'all's points for sure. The adjacent street agreement is probably a really big deal. Fire truck stuff should be an easy tweak to get that worked out. But the drainage and the adjacent street agreement, I agree.
And the utilities.
The utilities,
and
I know Malcolm had
You know, a lot of
concerns.
Well. Yeah, I don't know.
The legalities of that.
And that's my question. I guess that's my question for you guys and really for the staff. I mean, if we put the stipulations with an extension versus asking you guys to go back to it at a reduced rate, that's kind of the same thing, right? I mean, if we put the instead of them, I don't even know what the fees would be for this project, but let's say it's $1,000. I'm just gonna pick an easy number. If we approve it with contingency that they meet the new stuff, they're still gonna have to do the same thing, but they wouldn't have to pay the $1,000 fee, I think is kind of where John and Joey are at. We also need to work with you guys to understand if that's even something that you would consider.
It seems like some of the newer things, I mean, some of the stuff was addressed, but some of the things, because it has gone on, are new. That they're holding them responsible for itself changing. I don't know.
I think it's like $500. It's the middle fee.
I think Jeff's point was, what's the difference in approving it contingent upon updating to the current standards versus making them go back through the whole process, resubmitting, reissuing a $500 fee.
They would have $100 resubmittal fees for each time that they resubmit.
Versus 500 for new submittals.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Trying to be as fair as possible here.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
it's no middle ground, I mean.
so
Go ahead, Brandon.
I have a question though, you know, based on what you just said, Joey, was, okay, so let's say that a year from now, they're still not building and the code gets updated again. Do we submit language into this that forces hey, whenever you start the project, you start building, whatever the code is on that day, you've got to be updated on that day. Because it doesn't seem right that we're held hostage to an agreement 2 years ago and they haven't started building. We've been updating the code in order to improve our city, you know, and make sure that we're up to date. And then, but they just are allowed to just do an old code or whatever was previously approved.
The only thing is, Brandon, if somebody, you know, gets approved today and they wait 11 months and we update 10 things, they're still gonna be able to build what we approved. So I see what you're saying, but we wouldn't go back and look at that on the others.
I agree. I totally agree, except if they were asking for, except if they were asking for an extension. That's where I would only disagree with what you said.
The reason that we have an expiration is so that we can go back and use the current code. And in this case, we've actually found some things that didn't comply with the codes back then either.
And I'm not disagreeing to any part of that. I'm just asking how to help them out and get them through without having to resubmit a whole nother fee, because essentially they could pick up where they left off and come back in.
So for every project, might as well, it won't matter on if it's expired, it's just an automatic approval.
No, if it's expired, it goes away.
Institute whether they would not be approved.
If their timeline runs out, then they have to go back through. If they're here asking for an extension, they're still gonna go back through. It would essentially keep them on the same timeline. It's the same thing.
Second,
Do what?
this is also their second extension.
Right, and I'm not saying that they don't need to update the plans.
Then what happens if, say, next week, they get their ADH approval? Then they can do pre-construction.
No, I'm saying they need to update the plans.
They update their plans, it's just they're gonna have another review.
Without the formality of
Yeah.
resubmitting fully, without the formality of expiring, resubmitting fully and going back through the whole process again.
It's the same thing, approving it with the staff comments need to be addressed or making them resubmit is literally the same thing. It's gonna go through the same review either way. It's just, do they pay $100 or $500? That's what it comes down to.
It's clear for record keeping, because it shows that they have started a new subdivision that is now following our current code versus having to track. This is when they had old code versus this is when they had new code. So it's just, it's
I
a.
can make it really clear in my motion. If I need to.
In the motion, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, Joey. Can we not just let them not have to pay that bigger fee?
I think
That's what we're asking. That's why I wanted to ask.
see Brian's face.
Struggle with that.
Make an exception.
Right.
But I mean, I understand we seem to get ourselves in trouble sometimes by the extensions going and having staff from different eras take a look at it. And then we have updated codes and it's new staff. And so it seems to almost kind of keep it clean if we just deny it and they resubmit, but we also say out loud that they don't have to pay the full fee for that resubmit or something like that.
I don't think we can do that.
Okay, that's what I was
That's
asking. I didn't know if we could or not. Yeah.
Craig, what do you think?
I'm struggling. I mean, I think we did extend once. I get that there's some stuff that we didn't have a lot of control over. They didn't have a lot of control over. But it has been 2 years and yeah, I mean, as far as for the city, I think that's where I'm leaning is we need to do it right and we need to start over. They've had time.
You have a point, for sure. I guess we vote on it.
Just need somebody to make a motion and we'll vote on it.
So wait a minute, we brought it back, so.
We have two choices. We either approve the extension or we don't.
Yeah.
If we don't approve the extension, it'll come back.
And per our attorney's request, the motion is in the affirmative.
All right, John, I'll motion to approve subdivision 2119 Ambia Estates extension. But that was, it's all written on there though. With the new adjacent street agreements and remaining staff comments.
This is Joey, a second.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second, and I'm going to do a roll call vote. So, Craig,
No.
John,
No.
Joey,
Yes.
Devin,
Yes.
Jerry,
No.
Brandon,
No.
and I'm a no as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, under new business this evening. First thing, we have two public hearings this evening. The first one is for rezone 2310 Mod Lux LLC with the rezone from A1 to R3 multifamily, 578 Womack Road. It is 4.85 acres. And is the applicant here to give us an overview of what you're requesting?
Yes, sir. Ron Holmeyer, Civil Engineering, Palm Springs. What we have here is a request to take this undeveloped parcel from A1 to R3F so that we can do a townhome project there. It complies with the long-range plan. I mean, I don't know how much of this you want me to repeat. Basically, we're wanting to do 48 townhome units on one lot, one ownership. While the utilities and water and other infrastructure is required. It was a good fit for that area. You've got available sewer and water. So, other than that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you might.
Thanks, Rob. Haley, you want to give us a staff overview?
Yeah, so this parcel is located on the northwest corner of Kimmel and Womack Road. There's an existing warehouse on the property and there are also 2 existing septic systems. This property does have a current PUD that's contingent on the rezone approval, but this is just for the use of the land. This is not considering the PUD. That item will be next. So they're requesting the zoning of R3MF, which is medium high density multifamily residential. And that area is intended for one structure on a single lot that consists of 3 to 4 attached dwelling units arranged side by side and or stacked, typically with a shared entry from the street. The minimum lot area setbacks are listed in the report for you guys. For the streets, the parcels adjacent to Kimmel Road and Womack Road, both roads are designated as major collectors with a right of way of 80 feet per master street plan. The McKissick Springs Loop is planned down Kimmel Road, which is a 12-foot trail. Major collectors are intended to provide access to arterial roads, neighborhoods, parks, schools, and small commercial areas. So they balance land access with mobility and direct traffic to the transportation grid. For utilities, the Centerton water is available along both Kimmel and Womack. Centerton sewer is available to extend from the west subdivision Blossom Hills. In terms of the adopted land use plan, this area is designated as medium high residential or high density residential. Per the land use plan, medium high density residential areas consist of detached and attached single-family residential homes with a density of 7 to 11 units per acre. Attached single-family residential can include townhomes or duplex residential properties. These areas encourage greater variety within Centerton's housing stock and allow for more flexibility to build denser residential development in proximity to the city's major roadways such as Boulevard and Main Street. So based on the goals of the land use plan, the rezone request for R3 and F is consistent. R3 and F calls for a density of up to 8 units per acre, which complies with the 7 to 11 units per acre that's suggested by the land use plan and allows for flexibility in housing types. For the surrounding zonings and existing uses, I've listed in the report the neighboring subdivisions, their zoning, and the units per acre. Blossom Hills, Southwinds, Featherston West, Featherston Original, and then a little to the east is the dunes at Prairie Valley. So all of their units per acre are listed for you guys as well. So based on the variety of density present in this area, the rezone request for R3 and F is compatible with the surrounding uses and zonings. For the comprehensive plan alignment, I've listed a few items out of the comprehensive plan. Most of them have to do with providing a variety of housing types within the area, but those are there for your guys' consideration as well. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions or comments from any of the commissioners before we open it up to the public?
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing for rezone 2310.
John, second. Motion is second to open the public hearing. We are open to the public now. If anyone has any comments or questions in regards to the rezone request, again, it's at 578 Womack Road from A1 to R3 multifamily. We'd ask that you come up to the podium, state your name, address, and then any questions or comments that you might have for the commission.
Good evening, Marco Reyes. I live at 449 Womack Road, so just neighboring to the north. Just two questions. One is, was there a traffic study done, or 48 units, I believe, in 4.8 acres or so?
This item is just for the rezone, so it doesn't have to do with the actual development of the property. It's just the use of the property. We'll have time for the PUD comments on the next item, and that one we'll do with the units that are being proposed on the actual piece of land.
Okay, that may be relevant to my next question as well, but you know me. When property, the neighborhood was developed up to the west of my property, water started coming to my property and now it floods in certain parts. So it's land right now, so it's not a big deal unless, you know, I want to use it. Is there a check to, and again, maybe this is for the next session, but is there a check to make sure that the water doesn't run into my property whenever they build there?
It'll be part of
That's part of the next.
Okay, I'm check to the west.
that should be your best friend, but really part of the next one, Marco.
Okay, thank you.
But we'll bring it up on the next one. Okay. Anyone else have any questions or comments in regards to the rezone? And third and final call.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for rezone 2310.
Second. Motion is second to close the public hearing. Is anyone opposed? All right, let's go through the questions that we need to consider for the rezone. Again, the request is from A1 to R3 multifamily. And the first question is the rezoning consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan, including the adopted land use plan? If not, why? And as was shared with in our packet, the rezone is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Does anybody disagree with that or have any questions or comments? Is the proposed rezoning compatible with the surrounding area and zones? And again, I think that with it being housing, and there is a wide variety of housing around the area, it does seem to be compatible with the surrounding area and zones. Does anybody disagree with that or have any questions or comments?
No, I just want to point out, thank you, Kayla, for all the densities, but it looks like we go from 2.92 units per acre all the way up to 8.9 units per acre in this vicinity.
Dunes is actually 24 units per acre because they're apartments, so.
Oh, really? Okay. But that goes back to the housing mix.
Yeah.
So yes, I agree with you, Jim.
The third thing, would all the permitted uses in the new zone be compatible in this location and the surrounding areas? And again, with it being the R3 multifamily, I believe that it would, that permitted use would be compatible. Does anybody disagree with that or have any questions or comments? Would the rezoning provide a benefit to this landowner but not be considered for other similar properties in this area? And I do not believe that it would benefit just this landowner, but we would consider the same thing for each one of the properties. Does anybody disagree with that or have any questions or comments? And if the public is opposed, why? Are the objections based upon factual information relating directly to this request or opinion based? Does any factual information presented apply to this rezoning situation? And again, when we get to the development part, which is next, we'll go through and there'll be open public hearing for that as well, okay? And so I'm gonna say that based on this rezoning, there were no comments, if you will, specific to this rezone, but something that we'll look at in the next when we look at the PUD that's requested. Does anybody disagree with that?
No, sir.
Any additional questions or comments before we consider the rezone? If not, then I would entertain a motion for rezone 2310 on Lux. Again, the rezone request is from A1 to R3 multifamily at 578 Womack Road.
Greg, I'll make a motion to approve rezone 23-10 Mod Lux. Rezone from A1 to R3 MF.
Joey, a second.
Motion and a second. You'll do a roll call vote from Samantha?
Brandon Kubota,
Yes.
John Sessoms,
Yes.
Jerry Harris.
Yes.
Fred Langford,
Yes.
Kevin Murphy,
Yes.
Joey Engel,
Yes.
Jim Safar.
Yes. Next on the agenda this evening is our second public hearing. This is for the PUD planned unit development 2304. Mod Lux Townhomes, proposed townhomes at 578 Womack Road. It will be zoned R3 multifamily, 4.85 acres with 54 dwelling units. Yeah. Ron, if you just want to give us an overview of what you're requesting.
Yes, sir. The proposal is to do basically a multifamily townhome style apartment project. The actual unit can be 48 units at this point. We are proposing to reduce the street setbacks basically so that we can get buildings further out and have more room in the middle for the common area. We're providing amenities in that common area. There's gonna be a pickleball court down on the corner so that there's nothing in there that would obstruct traffic use. We are new pavilion and barbecue grill, and we're also gonna be adding a playground area, which will be on the next submittal. I haven't seen it yet. And then, providing two parking spaces per unit. Each unit has a garage as well, so some people will probably use the garage. Most people will use it for storage, but there's at least two. The parking spaces are extra deep, 22 feet long. And we have walking, sidewalks for trails and maneuver and mobility throughout the site. Landscaping is required, and so it's the bulk of it. I can answer any questions anyone has.
All right, thank you. Ayla, would you like to give us a staff overview?
Yes, so the applicant is requesting a PUD to develop a multifamily development at the northwest corner of Womack and Kimmel. This development will include 48 residential units within 12 fourplex buildings. As we discovered in the rezone, the property has access to Centerton water along Kimmel and Womack and Centerton sewer. is available to connect through Blossom Hills to the west. There are no floodplains or wetlands shown on this parcel. The property is directly adjacent to R2. I have all of those different developments in the area listed again there for you guys for consideration, since we'll be talking about the density proposed for this project. So this PUD is contingent on that rezone request being approved by City Council with your guys' recommendation. So R3MF is intended for one structure on a single lot that consists of 3 to 4 attached dwelling units. This PUD request is consistent with that intent of the zoning district. However, it requests that all buildings remain on one lot rather than each building being on its own separate lot. For the streets, it's adjacent to Kimmel and Womack Road, which are both major collectors with a right of way of 80 feet for the master street plan. The McKissick Spring Loop is planned along Kimmel Road, which is a 12-foot trail. Because the location of the McKissick Spring Loop Trail hasn't been fully planned out, like which side of the road it will go on. This development is proposing to build a 6-foot sidewalk on their side and a 10-foot sidewalk on Womack for the street sections. In the future, the city will be responsible for building the other 6-foot of McKissick Spring Loop. For the internal streets, they're proposed to be private with a width of 25-foot back of curb. Sidewalks are not provided along the interior streets because there are 5-foot sidewalks throughout the development for pedestrian circulation. Per the PUD code, it requires that the property be in one ownership. And it currently is owned by Modlux, and they're not proposing to split it anymore. No additional land division shall be permitted except upon consideration and approval by the Planning Commission. For the design, they're proposing 48 residential units. And it proposes a central open space area with a grill and pavilion, a pickleball court with a fence in the southeast corner of the development, 5-foot walking trail throughout the development for pedestrian circulation, 2 wet ponds with benches, and an open space area for recreation. So with this design, the density is 9.9 units per acre, which is a little bit higher than the 8 units per acre that R3MF allows. So we'll get into how that impacts the open space required. The only other differences are the setbacks. They are requesting the front setback and the street side setback be 15 feet. So that would be along Kimmel and Womack Road. The side setback and the rear setback would be 20, which is consistent and even more than the code requires. We already went through the amenities. So for the density, they're asking for 9.9 units per acre, 23.75% increase in density. So because there is an increase in density, when we revised the code, we talked about having to require more open space. So for that, they follow the chart in the PUD code, which means they're providing 31.24% open space, which is 1.29 acres. For the architectural treatments, it'll be more ironed out with the large scale, but they did provide us with the elevations. And those will be cement, lap, board, and brick. One thing I do want to mention is that I know we talked about with the PUD code having them have articulation for the buildings that face the public right of way, so Kimmel and Womack. I don't know if that is shown on these, but if not, I recommend it as a condition. For landscaping, they did provide a landscaping plan, which includes street trees along Kimmel and Womack. I will note that the street trees proposed along Kimmel Road are outside of the right of way and inside a utility easement. But there's already water existing along Kimmel Road. The water and sewer will be in the streets in the development. So that easement ideally would only be used for franchise. Ron, does this development, are they gonna have gas or is it just electric?
For sure, it's all electric.
Okay, so if it's all electric, then I think it might be okay for those street trees to be within the utility easement because it's mostly just franchise and electric. But we'll confirm with the utility companies. And then you guys can see the rest of the landscaping. There are a few notes on the landscaping. There are a few trees that just they can't go there by the buildings. And then around the pond, there are a few shrubs that need to be removed so that they're not obstructing the storm pipes. And then for screening, they are providing a 6-foot fence along the east and the north property lines for screening. And of course, they've got a 20-foot buffer, which includes a 5-foot sidewalk and trees as landscaping buffering. For the parking, they're giving 3 spaces for dwelling unit, 2 uncovered, 1 covered. They do have a sign proposed at each entrance that will have to go through a sign permit. And then I listed a few items in the comprehensive plan that are met by allowing this kind of development, having to do with flexible housing. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments from any of the commissioners before we open it up to the public?
What was the justification for reducing the street side setback 10 feet?
Purpose was that, was to enable us to have a larger common area in the middle.
I think it was to provide driveways and stacking, because I don't know that you can get it with.
If I'm looking at them, like, I don't know how long the driveways are, let's
Yeah,
say
I
you
can't
get
tell either.
They are at least 20 feet, so that's required from, usually it's from the back of sidewalk. He doesn't have sidewalks in the front, so from the back of curb, it's 20 or 22 feet. That's the normal one from the street code, is 20 feet from the right of way of the sidewalk, so. I'm not sure it's still what it is.
You found it has not been enough.
Well, because it's sidewalks, right?
Pardon?
Because it's sidewalks, right?
Right,
But there's no
because
sidewalk.
an extra 10 foot of,
Yeah, there's no sidewalk.
There's no
sidewalk,
sidewalk.
sidewalks go on the back, right?
I mean, if it's just 20 feet total. It's just total feet from the back of curb to the house.
24.5 feet.
24.5.
Okay, gotcha. Good.
22 feet of that is paved and
I was gonna say,
a
we,
little green space between the parking space and the building.
At least 20, I knew that.
I'm following along, I
I see 18.
Oh, no.
That's the width. This is the.
Just a quick question. I know this is just PUD and we'll get the full plans later, but. The curb inlets on Womack. I'm thinking about long-term settlement against the sidewalk. I know we have that issue elsewhere in town. What's the rationale in the long throats to push them back into the sidewalk?
It matches what they have on the other side and allows some of that spread to get, because you have more drop from that throat.
Sure.
It drops your spread, so it helps keep Womack open and it actually matches what's on the other side. So you have a little more width and a little more depth.
Yeah, but you could just add another inlet and pick it up. And not have the box in the bike path, right?
There are ways to make sure that the sidewalk does not settle. We can add a lip to the top of the box for the sidewalk to sit on, or we can require
Yeah, just something, I see it all over town and I've seen some pretty bad ones.
and I know what you're talking about, and we'll make sure we either add the lip or the dowels, one of the two.
One thing, is that the internal streets are 25 foot back of curbs, so that wouldn't allow on-street parking.
Yeah.
So you don't have any parking for visitors unless it's just the one space in the driveway.
I know usually we look at these and if they can't park on the street, then one area that
Yes, parking.
is your parking.
That's a good point. I think how much over were we on green space? We're not.
It's like right
We
there.
weren't because of the increase in
Setback?
dwellings, right?
Yeah, because the increase in density, they had to give
You get more.
31% open space.
Gotcha.
I think we've done that in every one of these so
Yeah.
far, haven't we?
We have.
So that might be something that we'll be looking for, Ron.
Got some problems in some other areas where
Especially since they can't park in the street.
20 years ago.
Hey. This is Brandon. I have a quick question. What was just walk me back to why we're recommending or 9.9 units instead of 8?
That's what the PUD request is. They're requesting an increase in density and they have to give additional open space for that increase in density. So normally they would only be required to give 25% open space with
Mm-hmm.
D if they weren't asking for increased density. But because they've increased their density by about 25%, they had to give 31% open space.
So they want to increase the units, just make sure I understand, which increase the open space, but now we're saying there might be issues with visitor parking.
Correct.
Okay.
You add that visitor parking, that's gonna eat up
Correct.
into your open space that's not considered.
Well, one unit may have to change to allow for parking or something, right? I mean,
Right.
You have to figure that out.
If we request visitor parking.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
It must be a three unit and then something.
maybe get rid of that one, it's parking here.
Any other questions or comments before we open it up to the public? All right, then I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
This is Craig. I make a motion to open the public hearing for PUD 23-04.
John, second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right,
Yes, sir.
Marco?
Good evening, Marco Reyes. I live in 449 Womack Road, and the questions were, one about traffic and traffic flow on Kimmel on Womack, being that it's 48 units. And then Kimmel, I've seen the plans for Elm Tree, no, not Elm Tree, Greenhouse. And it seems like it narrows, so it opens up right before, but then Kimmel narrows as it goes into Centerton, so that would create a bit of a funnel, it seems like. So that's the first question.
Kimmel has been widened at the intersection here, and as part of the development, they're actually helping, Diane, can you scroll down to the road?
Yes.
They're helping realign Kimmel. So this development, you can see how on the south side, the road, it's transitioning so that we can line it up where with the section line further east with the Featherston so that it's 3 lanes.
So where it's wider at the intersection on the southeast or on the east side, where it's 3 lanes, they're gonna be widening this, so you'll have 3 lanes on Kimmel from Womack eventually to Main Street.
Okay, and that should accommodate the density that's being built here and across the street also, they're building those little houses.
Allows for the stacking, yeah, for the left turn, so they're not gonna be slowing the traffic down.
Yeah, and the second question was around, the water flowing to my land. Is there the checks or how do we prevent that from happening when they build?
So they have a study they do for all the water that's existing now and where it's going based on several different storm events. And there's requirements with what they have there is that what water is flowing off currently. And right now there's actually 4 different areas where water actually flows off this site. He's actually getting rid of one where it won't flow off at all anymore and consolidating more to going out through the southwest corner. So he has a giant report that says, you know, here's how much water is going off at these different study points. And with the development that flow rate, so if you're having runoff that's going through over this creek, that's, you know, that wide and that deep, it'll never be longer than that. It'll actually go down or stay the same. And in this case, they're all going down and being smaller. The volume might go up just because of the added infrastructure, but the majority of this flow is going out that southwest pond, not north. The northeast pond actually redirects and goes back southwest.
So they can't make the drainage worse than it already is. They can only keep it the same or make it better.
Okay. Do I have any recourse if that's not the case and it ends up flowing into my land? Or is it like, if they did it, it's like, oops, it didn't flow the way we thought and.
With his stamp, he's saying and making the statement that there's no negative impact on any of the neighbors. And he has his engineering stamp saying, I'm making the statement is true.
Okay.
That's
So,
not true.
yeah.
Is there anything I should be recording now to show what the current conditions are?
Pictures are always good.
Yeah.
Pictures.
I'll leave it at that.
Okay. trying to get ahead of potential things. Hopefully nothing will happen, but if it happens, I don't just wanna come and say like, water's there and the stamp says water was there, so. Let's hope.
I would say pictures, and then it is open to the public. So if you wanted to come down and have a conversation with Craig in layman's terms, if you will, and say, don't be an engineer, but show me, he could show you the points of what they're looking at. He's allowed to share that with you because it's a public record. And so I would make Alan your friend.
Yeah. I think it's just fun to get familiar with what's happening and, yeah, I'll take some pictures and I'll come talk to Alan if I have questions. Thank you.
Thanks.
And just as a note, our 3MF is 8 units per acre, which would be about 39 units. So they're getting about 9 more units. And for the visitor parking, I'm sure that they could just probably cut off two on some of these fourplexes and make them triplexes and account for visitor parking pretty easily.
We are open to the public. If anyone else has anything they'd like to ask, have any questions, comments in regards to this planned unit development, we'd ask that you come to the podium, name and address, and any questions or comments you might have. And third and final call for anyone who wishes to speak.
They want to speak?
And I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
It's John, a motion to close public hearing, PUD 2304.
Greg, second.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. Is anyone opposed? So I think the biggest thing, Ron, we'd be looking for would be some visitor parking. Don't know how we get there. Don't have a number of space. I could give you a number of space if you want, but we would look for you to come back and give us some idea of what that might look like. We have put in all of our other PUDs, especially some that are crowded like this. I think we even did it in Featherston, which is near it, where they actually created some parking along the middle of it. So we have requested it in each one of these PUDs because you're wanting to put more people in there, get the green space. But at the end of the day, if they have visitors and they want to have more than one visitor, they're stuck, right? I mean, they can't have any visitors. So we would request some sort of, ability for some friends and family to park in. And we're not, I don't want to say we're not design people because Joey will tell you where to put it at, but we're going to allow you to kind of think through that and work with staff, for when we see this next. Okay.
Sure thing. We'll be sure to add that.
Alan, have you looked at this taper on Kimmel? Does that match up to speed limit?
Yeah. It meets the minimum.
Yeah, I worked with him and the designer on Featherston with that transition, that pulled straight out of recommendations from, I think it was the Ashton. The length on that taper.
What about the taper on the north end? Or I guess that's south. That'll be southbound traffic, so are you gonna do anything there on Womack? Or just leave it? If you go north. I mean, technically, nobody should, your other north.
The other north, thank you.
Just ends.
Yeah, I mean, because of the rest we have there, it's gonna be ones where widen it to there and then just stripe it.
Yeah.
So when anyone ever develops there, we portray and widen that.
When. Yeah. Okay, thanks, man.
I can't tell him he has to sell all of his house.
This is Brandon. I have a question. So can you re-explain to me the setback issue on the front and the side, why we're at 15 and not 25?
It's a PUD, Brandon. They can request essentially anything they want.
Okay. So this wasn't a,
Go ahead, Brandon.
well, I was gonna say, so this wasn't a discussion and with us yet. This is just a request from them. It's what they didn't have a discussion with Alan or anybody about, or there's no issue that would require this for them to request this 15 feet.
Correct. It's something they're requesting, which then allows them to push the buildings out, but have more on the inside is their request.
Okay, thank you.
And the reason for it was in order to have the driveway off-street parking for them. Cause if you push that back to the regular width, your driveways wouldn't be long enough to actually stack a vehicle.
So then we have another parking issue.
Well, I'd say if you extended the setback back to what the normal
25 or 20.
5, yeah, so if you put it 10 feet, their driveway would be 12 feet long.
Well, as it's designed, Brandon.
As it's
Okay.
designed.
Gotcha. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, and again, keep in mind that when we do the PUD that when it gets to the designs of the building and the landscape, we also have more control over it, if you will, in regards to the articulations, what they use, and of course, the green space or the big things that we have, you know, that they have to follow according to the code, which is a little different than if it was just a multifamily.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments before I read through what we need to consider and the special conditions?
I do wanna note that along to the east, the dunes at Prairie Valley, they have a 10-foot setback off of Kimmel for their front setback, so there is precedent in the area for that.
I got one question before you get into it, Jeff. On your elevations, I noticed it said masonry and some lapped concrete material, but I don't see any of that on your elevations.
That's not the latest elevation I've provided to the city.
I put the wrong one. Sorry,
What's the latest show?
the latest has brick along the bottom of the buildings. More than that. When you get to the front of them.
Is it just the bottom? Does it wrap it all the way around?
I believe it's all the way around.
I will look for it.
We're gonna try to pull it up, sorry.
I didn't study all 4 views. I just noticed that they had the brick and I sent it to the city, so my apologies.
Yeah, the one in our packet just shows the siding.
Right. I saw that when she was going through her presentation and I forgot to mention that.
It's opening.
Let it not die. Sheesh. There we go.
Is it really?
All 4 sides.
It wraps around.
Just a little length to it.
Briefly, Wayne's kind.
What are the articulation standards?
They just had to have 2 materials. We didn't specify percentage.
There was.
We did.
I think.
Oh, the articulation, sorry.
Yeah.
Percentage.
I'm not,
Articulation on the front of the building, not realizing that the back of the building was what was supposed to have it. So I have to get with the architect.
okay. Cause it kind of just looks like a big box from the back.
It does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the part that faces Kimmel and Womack should have articulation as well.
Okay. So we'll be looking for that when it comes back. Yeah, there you go. Every 100,
Thank you.
every 100 feet, minimum of 1 time. Yeah.
So the articulation would need to be front and back.
Oh, we had a percentage.
Or just in the rear.
Didn't have like-
When it's visible from a public street. It's public.
Yeah. I think you get some more grace if we kind of prettied up the public facing stuff. That's really what the intent of the code is.
Definitely the backs of the ones that back up to Kimmel and Womack. Okay.
Oh, because they did in greenhouse. They have like 1 brick and 1 siding and 1 brick.
All right. I'm gonna do a lot of reading here. So for our consideration, The approval shall be based on findings of the proposed PUD 14.04.12.c that the development's land use is permitted in the zoning district and or is compatible with the city's land use plan and or is substantially similar to adjacent property. The development is likely to be compatible with development and land use permitted as of right by the zoning ordinance substantially in all of the vicinity of the proposed PUD. Provides public benefits that would not be achieved through the normal zoning regulations. Adequate public utilities are already in place to service the property, or the developer has sufficient plans and private financial commitment in place to ensure adequate public utilities will be available to service the property. The development will not impose substantial negative external impacts on or prevent the orderly development of adjacent property. The development does not endanger the public health, safety, or welfare. The special conditions, the density shall be limited to 9.9 units per acre. Design criteria, building and setback criteria shall be as follows. The front setback measured from the MSP right of way, 15 feet, side setback 20, street side setback 15, rear setback 20. The amenities, the PUD shall include pickleball courts, pavilion, grill, walking trails, benches for wet ponds, and open recreation areas. Parking, a total of 3 parking spaces will be provided per dwelling unit, 1 covered plus 2 uncovered. Landscaping and tree preservation, a landscaping and tree preservation plan shall be provided with large scale development. Plan submittal include a tree inventory of those trees proposed to be removed in the PUD area with information of sizes, species if known, and general health. Street trees shall be installed as a spacing of 1 tree per 25 linear feet adjacent to public and per the recommendations of the typical street section for species, spacing, and locations. Trees shall be planted within landscaping islands. Screening per the residential compatibility standards, which is 14.04.03, shall be required between the development and the adjacent parcels to the west and north. A 6-foot wood privacy fence will be placed along the west and north property lines with a 10 to 15-foot landscape buffer containing trees spaced at 1 tree per 25 linear feet to screen adjacent properties. Open space, no less than 31.24% of open space shall be dedicated via permanent open space easement in compliance with the PUD ordinance requirements. Should the density of the proposed development decrease, the open space requirement will meet the PUD ordinance. And then we have the general conditions and terms as well.
So number 8 could be subject to some change based on the parking. Correct.
Correct.
If their unit decrease.
Right.
Are there any additional questions or comments from any of the staff or the commissioners? If not, then I would entertain a motion for PUD 2304, the Mod Lux Townhomes.
So before we do that, I'm sorry, I do have a question. I'm a little late on the draw. We are voting with these considerations to be in place at 9.9 units per acre instead of 8, and the setback requests that they're making. So once we vote on that now, that's permanent, and they begin building out our the next round with that in place, including the parking issue.
So the maximum would be the 9.9, the setbacks as stated, yes. And understanding that we will see some additional parking in the large scale development. So that's the reason, to Joey's point, that number 8 could change. So the 31%, 31.24% today is based off of the number of units. That could adjust a little bit if 2 units go away. So that 31.24 is relative to what we're looking at tonight. What we don't know is what will change in regards to the additional parking.
I guess I'm not comfortable with the 9.9 as well as the setback that they're requesting. I'm not comfortable with either of those. I'm just want to say that out loud.
Okay.
all the way around, Brandon, specific spots.
I mean, I appreciate, I mean, we need the housing. We're growing, no doubt about it. Feels like we're doing a lot with a little bit of space. And, if we cap it at 8, like it should be, and we do the setbacks that we should be, and it automatically allows for the number of parking spaces that should be there as well. And we don't have an issue with any of those from the beginning. So that.
There'd also be no green space requirement,
No, still 25%.
25%.
Yeah, so I mean, so we still have the green space requirement is still met. Might lose a pickleball court, and I hate that because I love pickleball. But
Thank you, Brandon.
yep, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, then I'm gonna entertain a motion for PUD 2304 Mod Lux Townhomes.
So the option to table it and engage it.
Parking?
I like that option for me.
If that's the case, we just need a motion.
I definitely think it's a little safer because you're placing very specific requirements on this and we don't know what that's gonna be, right?
Yeah. So
Can't be.
I guess I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to table. Hold on, I'm scrolling back up, sorry. Where are we? What am I looking at here? Hello.
For Modlux.
Yeah, for Modlux, I'm in order to address the parking issue, number of units, setback requests. Do I need to add any language there?
Nope.
You're good. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to table. Is there anyone that's opposed to tabling? Thanks, Ron. We'll see you back whenever you're ready. So just for the public that we're here tonight, all of our agendas are published. Any meeting is open to the public. So when it's back on the agenda, if you want a chance to review it, you would have to come back to one of our meetings. We are on the first and second Tuesday, right? First and third Tuesday of every month. So
They've met the notification requirement, right? There's no new notification.
correct.
As long as they don't increase. See that happening.
So just in case you want to see what it ultimately comes back and looks like, then they'll be back before us. All right, next on the agenda is subdivision 2215, the Pines. I'm assuming that's 5 through 7. And then for a 6-month extension at 11501 Walters Road, zoned R3 single family at 142 acres. Diane?
The developers here.
Okay, sorry.
Michael Berry with Schubert Mitchell, here to request that extension. There's really been two kind of things contributing to this. Of course, the sewer capacity issue from 2023. Lines 4 was caught up in that, so this is the trickle down effect from that, and then just hurdles with ADH on offsite water main, and we have one more comment with them, and hopefully we can get that this week, and then we'll be scheduling a recon meeting with the city. So that's where we are on this one.
Okay. This is the Pines, phase 5 through 7. It's located off of Walters Road, adjacent to phase 4, which is currently under construction. sorry, they will have access to Walters Road along High West over to CP Ranks Drive, CP Ranks Road, sorry about that. All of the comments have been completed for staff. It was approved on March 21st, 2023, and they have been waiting for the ADH approval. Through this whole time, they've got kind of sucked up into the capacity issues. Phase 4 was released. They're just waiting for these. They're requesting the 6-month extension. They just had all of their planning commission comments completed back in November, so there's nothing outstanding on it. The adjacent street agreement has been approved. We just need signatures on that because we were waiting to make sure that all of the fee in lieu for the southern section of Wolverine Drive would be covered correctly, because they can't construct it because it's not all the way on their property, and there's no way to make it currently as a drivable surface until something's developed on that west side of it. They are providing the street trees along High West Road and along Wolverine, which they are providing right of way for both of those, which are on the master street plan as collector roads. And we do need some discussion on the trail. We've been kind of going back and forth today via email as far as if on High West, if we want a 10-foot trail on both sides or just one side and a 6-foot sidewalk on the other, because we've kind of changed those requirements. But I mean, right now, like I said, they do have 10 foot on either side, so that's something we're still trying to hammer out as far as staff on that one. But like I said, other than that, everything has been approved. The drainage was approved, and any comments that were remaining after the planning commission approval this time last year have all been addressed, and there's been no changes or anything, any significant changes since they were approved and got all their comments addressed. And they did address a comment that you guys had when it was approved at the intersection of CP Ranks and High West. I think it was Joey that noticed, hey, y'all are grading off of your site. So that intersection is not going to work. So they did redesign the intersection of High West and CP Ranks, and it was approved by staff. I mean, if you have any other questions about this one.
The grading she's saying was on property they already owned, but we're including as part of this development. So they've reestablished as a drainage easement or grading easement.
Any other questions or comments in regards to the 6-month extension?
I'll point out, I think, at the very top, the approved plans are compliant with current codes. Right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is not like the first one we heard tonight.
Correct.
It is 6 months. You said you're just waiting on one outstanding comment from ADH, right? It's not a capacity concern, it's like a design type deal.
It's actually an easement, that's needed. There's a water and a gas line running through a property. And we've been working with Malcolm. There's the water and gas line running through, but there's no easement on that. And so we've been trying to get in contact.
Oh, okay. So that's a Malcolm comment, not a health department comment.
Well, it came from health department.
Okay. So a 6-month will get you there.
Yeah, if we could, we've stopped by the last couple of days to try to make contact with those landowners, and haven't had that opportunity yet. So as soon as we get a signature there, we'll get it recorded and we'll be appeased.
If there's no other questions or comments, then I would entertain a motion for subdivision 2215, The Pines, phase 5 through 7 for a request for a 6-month extension.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to approve 6-month extension for subdivision 2215, The Pines, phase 5 through 7.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else from staff?
I'm in business A, but it's blank.
Lorraine.
I think that we had discussed it when we were working on the schedule of uses back then. But, on job site trailers, they're temporary, they're portable, and it's usually something that I feel like that we can do administratively. So I just want to verify with the commission that they are fine with staff handling any job site trailer.
Permit do you issue for that? Is that not permitted?
We do have some where, yeah, years ago, we did that. But the only time that we've been doing it since then is if they are using one of their homes as an office or a the mobile home, a sales office, or if they are storing materials and so forth on the site. But I just want to verify, someone came in today, they're actually wanting to do a concrete sidewalk to this temporary building. But that's something I think.
A permanent structure to get to a temporary structure.
Well, yeah, and then they would tear out the concrete. I don't know how long or anything. That was just one of the.
So which ones would we see? The model home ones or the office?
You would see the model homes, like Schubert Mitchell, how they have a home that they take over and it's where they have their meetings and.
Their office?
They're all, yeah.
It wasn't.
I think too on these, their trailer that has a bathroom in it, they'll still have to get a meter.
Sure.
Meter, all that. There's some permitting through building and utilities. Yeah, they'll have to do fire inspections too for occupancy. Plus being on a job site, a temporary structure.
Yeah. That's fine, man.
I don't need to.
I just want to make sure that we weren't, I wasn't gonna be overstepping. We just did it administratively.
We're okay.
All right, and then we're gonna be getting some more Airbnb things. So that's something else that we're gonna need to be looking at is the code requirement.
What's the current state of the state on that law?
It's less than 30 days. Is short term.
Got it. Okay, but I mean, I know there's some cities that said you can only have X number on this.
Yeah, there are.
The short-term rental one didn't end up passing.
Or let us not restrict it.
Correct. There's no rule saying that we can't restrict them.
Okay,
The-
I don't know what you're saying. I was like.
It's
gonna be coming.
I know, but it needs to be coming back. So if we want to make any regulations for it, now's the time to do it before legislature gets back in session. They're probably gonna pass some sort of regulations as to what we can regulate.
Well, then. If they're gonna do that quickly, what are we?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. We almost want to wait because
Grandfather.
wait and see what.
I don't think you'll be grandfathers.
Yeah, you're not gonna get it, father. You're gonna get it. It's gonna have to, it's gonna be a redo.
Done it where if you already had regulations prior to the approval of whatever the new restrictions are.
They'll make you change your code.
I don't believe you can violate state.
I was doing it before it was.
If they put it in there stating that if these already existed, because there's several other cities that had regulations, I don't even remember what they were off the top of my head, that as long as they were before that state law was made, they were able to remain in place.
It's usually the opposite. When you're becoming more restrictive, they'll allow something that's less restrictive to be grandfathered in.
I have to go look at what they are, but that's
But
been the way they've done them.
What are the anticipated? Rules? What are the anticipated rules from the state?
there's a big lobby.
I know.
Yeah.
That we can't
Yeah.
regulate them at all.
Right. I kind of think we wait on that. I mean, is it an issue?
No, we just don't have any, I mean, there's on conditional uses. I was just kind of looking at, I had just started. It's still up on my computer.
Most neighborhood covenants cover it now, which takes it out of our hands anyway, but it's the covenant itself.
Conditional uses where, we look at that impact Like limited to, so many bedrooms or, so that you have so many people in the home. So you don't have 20 people staying in that house.
My concern would be more of just knowing that they're there, so if there is a problem, you know that it was potentially caused by that, so you can regulate it. Sort of like a registry or something. It's just my idea. I think there's a fine line of property rights and other.
Well, if we don't have anything, there's nothing to regulate against, so. I'll cross that on some things.
Well, I know we haven't passed on those.
Yeah, but yeah, we've done conditional use when that impact. How many people, are, for each one.
Enforces that though? Who's gonna enforce that?
We have a complaint and there's parking all over. We have a code enforcement officer and he's very good.
Yeah.
Flick. Well, I think just keep us in the loop then on, or if we need to do something.
And Title 15, we met with Barbara again. And Joey's gonna send his comments. Now we're gonna throw his comments into.
Oh, y'all ain't ready for my comments.
So we're getting close. You'll be seeing them soon.
Bradford Pears.
We just lost them all. It's weird.
It's like 120 or 100 and something pages, man. They went all out.
Bradford Pears all over the place.
They want on Main Street.
He's doing some reform.
Maybe money left.
Yeah.
You weren't taking out words, you were just moving the margin.
Making it feel.
Use a quick formatting. But it makes you less great.
Our next meeting is April 2nd. If you can't be here, let us know. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
We'll move.
Second.
Motion to adjourn. Is anybody opposed? Thank you, guys. Thanks, Brandon.
Like that 5-page essay. you had to
Hey,
write.
hey,
It was
I
cool
just
when you
want
make
to
a mark.